Are you familiar with the following situation? It's game night and you've spent hours preparing a fun session. Lots of mystery, lore, atmosphere. But then your players decide to kill that one NPC and you throw your notes away. Prepare too much and you risk wasting time on things the players will never encounter. Prepare too little and you might get caught with your pants down. It's a difficult balance to strike, which is why today I will show you an easy and effective method that I've been using to prepare just the right amount of notes in 8 simple steps. So welcome everyone, I'm AeroTheLich. Let's get started. Today I will introduce you to the lazy dungeon master method of game preparation from the book Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master by Sly Flourish. It's an amazing book with lots and lots of cool ideas, so let's jump right into it. Step 1. Reviewing the characters. This is the most simple step in my opinion. Look at the notes you took during your last session. Take a look at your players' character sheets if you have access to them. Where are the characters now? Where do they want to go? How can their backstories be integrated into the story? The players are usually more attached to their characters than your world. They want to perform meaningful tasks, follow their own agendas, and just do cool things. Reviewing the characters gives you a really good idea of where things could be heading. Personally, I like to ask my players, what do you want your character to do the next session? Or what do you think will happen to your character? What would be interesting to you? This is a solid starting point, but it's not always so easy. When you're just about to start a new campaign, or you want to run a one-shot, maybe even a pre-written one, it can get more difficult to incorporate every character's backstories and desires. But nonetheless, reviewing the characters and getting an idea of where and who they are is a great way to start your writing session. Step 2. Create a strong start. Okay, this is the most important step. The beginning of a session basically sets the tone for the rest of the game. So you want your start to be captivating and exciting, and you can accomplish that by writing a single sentence. You should try to be specific here and paint a clear picture in your mind of what is happening. For example, the players are approached at night by a cloaked figure who asks them to eliminate the Baron. It's good, but it can be better. At the last night of the Moon Blossom Festival, at an alleyway in the town of Terrasil, the players find themselves confronted by a strange man in a tattered cloak who tells them that it is of vital importance that Baron Lortrek meets his death before the break of dawn. Okay, I admit that is a bit too descriptive, but I think it sets the scene pretty well, and at this point the players' minds will be racing with questions. These are building blocks that you create by writing a single sentence, and you can use them as a foundation to build up the rest of the adventure from there. Essentially, when you think about the start of your session, ask yourself these 3 questions. What is happening? As in, what is going on around the players? Is there a celebration, a festival, a special performance of sorts? What's the point? As in, what sets the players in motion? Do they discover something? Are they being attacked or confronted by somebody? And where is the action? As in, what is happening to the players? Are they being robbed, arrested by the guards, asked to steal a certain item? It's nice to give your players something to do from the get-go. A clear goal that leads them towards the action. Or maybe the action has found them first. To quote the book, when in doubt, start with combat. Step 3. Outline potential scenes. Simply write down some bullet points describing scenes and situations that your characters may find themselves in. This helps you achieve a certain peace of mind, so to say. Your players may not encounter all of these scenarios, or they won't play out as expected, as it is so often the case in TTRPGs. But this step is still important for preparation. Let's stick with my example from the previous step and think about some potential scenes. The players could be confronting the hooded man, investigate the Baron's secrets and past, sneak around the Baron's mansion, face and fight the Baron, or warn the Baron that someone is after him, sneak after the hooded man to find out who he is. I think this is a pretty good example of what your bullet points might look like. And keep in mind that not every scene you outline has to come up in the session. Always be ready to scrap or rewrite anything you prepare. Okay, step 4. Define secrets and clues. This is my favorite step, let's go. And it's incredibly important too. If you create a strong start and define secrets and clues, you have the 2 most important pieces of your preparation done. A single secret or clue can be described in 1 sentence, and is generally some piece of information about the world, the characters, or the history of the world. When you think about your secrets and clues, it's best not to tie them to certain places or NPCs, like saying this specific clue can be found in this specific place, because that gives you more freedom in-game when it comes to how and where the players are discovering these secrets. It's also completely possible that your players may not find all of them, so as mentioned before, don't fall in love with a single idea and be ready to throw it all away. I would recommend writing about 10 secrets per session. That's usually enough. Here are some examples I've written down to give you a general idea of what secrets and clues might look like. Now, as I said, these are just examples. There are a lot more questions that could be answered or should be answered. I'm not saying this is a tight plot, but I think it's enough to get the idea across. Step 5. Develop fantastic locations. The easiest way to come up with an interesting location, in my opinion, is to think about a thought-provoking name and the kind of scene in which the location might be encountered. You can imagine the location as a kind of stage on which the scene takes place. For example, let's say the players have to cross a bridge. Let's give it a cool name, like the Bridge of Screams. Now we think about what kind of encounter the bridge is going to be. Are the players supposed to cross the bridge carefully, because it's swinging wildly in the howling wind? Or is it going to be something more action-oriented, like a fight against screaming ghosts? Those are all important things you can keep in mind, but we don't need to write everything down. It's enough to have a name and about 3 details about the location. Let's stick with the Bridge of Screams because I like that name. The note about this location could look like this. That should get the imagination of your players running, but how many fantastic locations should you include in your session? The book suggests 2 locations per hour of game time, and I think that's a good rule of thumb. Also, something that I like to do to make locations a bit more personal is to ask my players, what is the first thing you notice about this room, tavern, whatever place it is? That way the players are not just visiting your locations, but help shape them and therefore build a more personal connection with the environment. Step 6. Outline important NPCs. In this step, we should really only focus on the most crucial NPCs that the players are expected to frequently interact with, or those that influence the plot in some way. Similar to the previous step, it's usually enough to have a name and 2 to 3 facts about the NPC that are relevant to the story. And if you ask yourself how to make a character interesting or layered, let me tell you a secret. You don't have to ask yourself that question, because somebody else has already answered it. Think about your favorite book, movie, or piece of media, and pick a character whose mannerisms and appearance fit into your story, and then mold them into your NPC. Change their gender, their appearance, maybe give them a new character quirk. This is just a very quick way to do this. One might say it's a very lazy approach, but I mean, come on. Also, side note, avoid stereotypes. That's not always easy, but it's really recommended. Maybe you can even put a creative spin on existing stereotypes, like Senshi and Marcel from Dungeon Mashing. I think these 2 are great examples. Finally, as I said before, be ready to throw NPCs away that become irrelevant, or maybe they just straight up die. It's also possible to skip this step and come up with the details of your NPCs as you play, but I personally like to have a few planned out characters that the players can hang out with. That's just my personal preference though. Step 7. Choose relevant monsters. This step can be as simple or complex as you want it to be. The simple approach is read through your monster manual and pick monsters that make sense for the scene. Slimes in the sewer, ghosts in the haunted keep, and so on. Don't worry about balance too much and just pick monsters that you think are fitting to the story. Make a list of relevant monsters that your party might encounter, similar to step 3, and you're good. If you play D&D or Pathfinder, you might also find it useful to keep a monster's challenge rating in mind. A challenge rating for a monster is roughly equivalent to 1/4 of a character's level, or half if the resulting level is above level 5. So a CR2 monster is equivalent to a 4th level character, because 2 is 1/4 of 8, and 8 is more than 5, so we use half that value, which gives us 4. I may have messed up the math here, I don't run D&D that often. However, and you probably already knew that, But challenge ratings are not always accurate to how strong a monster really is. So that's something to keep in mind. Going back to step 1, reviewing the characters, it's also a good idea to think about what your players are good at in combat. Can they easily get rid of many small targets? Can they deal huge bursts of damage to single targets? Are they playing offensively, defensively? Knowing these things is very useful when making challenging encounters, especially when building boss battles. You don't want the big bad to go down before they get their first turn, but it's also not fun when the players are completely outmatched. So let your players show off how cool and strong their characters are, while still providing a good fight. It's not exactly a lazy way of preparing your session, but a well-made combat encounter is always really fun. And finally, step 8, select magic items and rewards. Here's a really cool idea from the book. Instead of thinking about what items you might want to give to your players, just ask them what they would want their characters to find. Make a wish list. Maybe they want a shiny new weapon, or something that lets them interact with their surroundings in a fun new way. You will never know unless you ask, and knowing this makes it so much easier to choose appropriate rewards. Or, just roll on a random table. That's what I like to do for some of my basic fantasy sessions. The player randomly found a protection against lycanthropy scroll. Cool. Guess he will be fighting werewolves soon. It can be really fun to start with something random and develop that into an idea for your next session. But of course, it always makes a lot of sense to choose specific items that fit into the story you're telling. Magic items can very easily become driving forces for the plot and a big goal for both the players and the villains. When a magic item is both beneficial to the party and important to the story, then there's really no reason why the players shouldn't go after it. The reward at the end is often just as important as the journey to get there. And that's pretty much it. Those are the 8 steps that you need to follow to prepare your next session effectively and quickly. The book goes into a lot more details on each step and offers many more tips and tricks on how to run a session 0, how to create a spiral campaign, and much more. I'm not sponsored, I just really like this book, and it's evident that a lot of hard work has gone into it. So I wanted to share some of its knowledge with you. Please support the creators of The Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, and like and subscribe if you want to support me as well. Have fun preparing your adventure. Until next time.